Rome, a city where you can explore ancient ruins, admire world-famous art, and completely spoil pasta back home for yourself, forever. But with so much to see, picking what to do and in what order can make planning a trip a little overwhelming. In this video, we'll share how we spent 4 days on our most recent trip to Rome to help give you ideas for your own visit. Plus, we'll pack this video full of tips and practical information so you can feel well prepared for your own trip. We arrived at our accommodation in the Piazza Navona area in the late afternoon with no set plans for the rest of our travel day. Unless you arrive really early, I think it's good to spend the rest of your travel day exploring the pretty streets and enjoying the initial holiday excitement without feeling like you have to do something specific. This is also the perfect time to do an all-important grocery shop if you don't plan to eat out for every meal. It wasn't long until we stopped for our first, but definitely not last, pasta of the trip. Different regions in Italy have their own pasta dishes. Rome is particularly well known for 4, and I'm pretty sure it's the law that you must try all of them. While you might see a few differences, these simple but absolutely delicious dishes use the same core ingredients with slight variations. Cacio e pepe uses a local grated cheese and black pepper. Pasta alla Gricia is like cacio e pepe plus cured pork. Pasta alla matriciana is essentially pasta alla Gricia but with a tomato base. And the famous carbonara is pasta alla Gricia plus egg. And definitely no cream unless you want to go to pasta jail. Our first full day in Rome began early with a visit to the famous Trevi Fountain. Known for its vivid flowing water and dramatic marble statues, the fountain is dominated by the Greek god Oceanus right at its centre. Legend has it if you toss a coin over your left shoulder into the fountain, then one day you'll return to Rome. We did this on our previous trip and there we were back in Rome, so I assume that must mean it works. Like most famous spots in Rome, the Trevi Fountain attracts swarms of fellow tourists. Even at 7 AM when we arrived, there was already quite a few people. It wasn't overwhelmingly busy though. You could easily get to the front for photos and there was plenty of space, definitely not shoulder to shoulder. I have seen photos where it looks actually quiet at around 5 AM, but we just weren't dedicated enough to try that one out for ourselves. If you need a caffeine fix, stop by a coffee bar for a cappuccino, an espresso, or whatever your coffee of choice is. Typically, you'll first pay for your coffee, then hand the receipt to the barista, who'll prepare it for you to enjoy while standing at the bar. Alternatively, you can sit at a table if there's one available. By day 3 or 4 of your city break, your feet might prefer this option. After coffee, we took a stroll around the area. It was then that we stumbled across an open, empty-looking church just steps away from the Pantheon. Inside, we were treated to this beautiful roof, and there was even Michelangelo's statue, Christ the Redeemer, at the front. And there was no one really there. As Rome is home to over 900 churches, there's a good chance you'll want to visit at least one, so make sure you're able to cover your knees and shoulders. This applies to the Vatican museums as well. If you're visiting during the warmer months, then pack layers like a light top or a scarf. As a quick side note, I've added all the sites mentioned in this video to a map, which is linked along with a free written guide in the description below this video. Just a few minutes walk from the Trevi Fountain is the Pantheon, one of Rome's best preserved ancient buildings. Inside you can really appreciate the massive dome with its oculus letting sunlight stream through. You'll also find the tomb of the famous artist Raphael, who was such a big fan of the Pantheon that he asked to be buried there. When you visit the Pantheon, there are separate lines for cash payments, pre-booked tickets, and card payments. If you haven't pre-booked, I'd recommend arriving a bit before it opens at 9 AM and then just choose whichever is shortest out of the card and the cash queue. We didn't pre-book and ended up right at the start of the card payments line, so ended up being some of the very first inside. This meant we were able to see an almost empty Pantheon, for a few minutes anyway. Close to the Pantheon is Piazza Navona. This Baroque square is shaped like a racetrack because it used to be the site of a stadium that hosted athletic tournaments and chariot races. Today it's normally a place where you can see some impressive fountains, although on our visit they were under renovation. While we were in Rome, the city was undergoing a lot of work ahead of the 2025 Jubilee. Even if you visit after the Jubilee, with a city like Rome, there will always be construction and restoration projects going on, so just know in advance that you might not always be able to get that perfect view. We passed by Campo de Fiori, a piazza that hosts Rome's most well-known market. Here you can buy fruit and veg, olive oil, truffles, herbs, spices and more. Many of the stalls are aimed at tourists with prices to match, so do be aware of that. Pizza by the slice is a great option for food on the go. Choose your toppings and then a rectangular slice is cut and priced by weight. It's then heated up so you can snarfle it outside right away. We particularly enjoyed the pizza slices from Antico Forno Roscioli, which is just a 3-minute walk from Campo de Fiori. Largo de Torre Argentina is an archaeological site that features the remains of 4 Roman temples, the ancient Pompeii's Theatre, and the infamous location where Julius Caesar was assassinated. These days, the ruins are also home to a well-known cat sanctuary. From street level, you can get a great view of both the ruins and the cats. Or for just a few euros, you can head down and explore the site up close. Our next stop will be on every visitor's list, the Colosseum. This enormous amphitheatre has towered over Rome for nearly 2,000 years. It would often host brutal events like gladiator tournaments and animal hunts, with over 50,000 spectators cheering on the bloodshed. There are different types of tickets available for the Colosseum. I'll cover them at the end of this video because frankly they can be a bit confusing, but we booked the ticket that allowed us to visit the upper levels, as well as the first and second floor that are included in the standard ticket. From the top there was a really great view over the Colosseum, and we had the upper floor almost to ourselves. Very different from what it's like on the first and second levels where there's a lot more people. While we were up there it started to rain, which then turned into a full-on storm complete with booming thunder and flashing lightning. While of course nobody wants a storm on holiday, it was pretty cool to take cover and watch the dramatic weather from the top of the Colosseum. So if you were wondering whether you can still visit the Colosseum when it's raining, yes you can. Your ticket also includes entry to the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill. Because our ticket was valid for 48 hours, we decided to visit the next day instead to avoid the afternoon heat. Plus, with our really early start, we thought it would be nice to take it easy that afternoon. One of the perks of staying somewhere fairly central is the ease of popping back to your room for a break, which is exactly what we did in the mid-afternoon. After our break, we planned to spend the rest of the day exploring Trastevere, one of Rome's most charming neighbourhoods. With its narrow cobbled streets and leafy buildings, Trastevere is perfect for a leisurely wander. This area is known for its authentic Roman restaurants, lively bars, and vibrant atmosphere, making it a great place to visit both day and night. We stopped for some suppli, which are delicious fried rice balls stuffed with different fillings like mozzarella, tomato, or meat. It is the perfect comfort food if you're looking for a very substantial snack on a budget. Our plans to keep walking were cut short by an absolutely massive storm, bigger than the one that had rolled over the Colosseum. While we'd have loved to have explored more of the area, taking shelter with a couple of Italian cocktails and watching the torrential rain wasn't a bad alternative. And luckily, we still managed to see a little bit more of the neighbourhood once the rain finally eased. Our morning was spent at the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill, two of the city's most well-known historic sites. Walk through the Forum, where you'll be surrounded by the remains of what was once the heart of Roman public life. Temples, basilicas, and monuments that have stood for thousands of years. There's also a fantastic vantage point of the Colosseum from this section of the Forum. As we bought one of the full experience Colosseum tickets, it included entry to the super sites, a collection of special areas and monuments within the Forum and on Palatine Hill that are not typically part of the standard entry. Some of these sites also feature video projections or narration to help bring the remains to life. We particularly enjoyed visiting the well-preserved residences of the House of Augustus and the House of Livia, and Santa Maria Antiqua, one of Rome's earliest surviving Christian monuments. Not every site is open every single day, so it's worth checking out the super sites online in advance. This way you can prioritise which ones you'd like to see and make sure you visit on a day when they're open. Also, you might run out of time or energy before seeing all of the sites, so I wouldn't recommend saving the best for last, just in case you're too exhausted by then. After exploring the Forum until around early afternoon, our feet were telling us it was time to sit down, so we stopped for a spritz. Aperol and Campari spritz are two Italian cocktails that you'll find everywhere in Rome. Aperol spritz is made with Aperol, Prosecco, and a splash of soda water. It's light, slightly sweet, and has a bright orange colour. Campari spritz is a more bitter alternative, using Campari instead of Aperol. Both are really good though. Typically, we found a spritz would cost between €7 and €10 depending on where we went. They do go down a bit too easily on a hot day though, so be warned. After a long sit down with the spritz, we took a slow walk around Rome's thriving Jewish quarter, home to one of the oldest Jewish communities in Europe. As it's a relatively small area, you could easily explore it by following a free self-guided tour in about an hour or so, or if you prefer, there are guided walking tours available. About an hour before sunset, we walked to the top of Aventine Hill. Here is the peaceful Garden of Oranges, where you can find a spot along the wall and enjoy far-reaching views across Rome. Watching the sky change colour while listening to the sound of cicadas and a guitar playing was incredibly relaxing. It's also near here that you'll find the not-so-secret keyhole that offers a beautifully framed view of St. Peter's Basilica. However, there was a massive queue to peek through the keyhole when we walked past, so we didn't bother. If you do visit the Garden of Oranges, there's a fantastic no-frills pizzeria just a 15-minute walk down the hill. Here you can try Rome's signature pizza, with its thin, crispy base and sauce spread all the way to the crust. It's served unsliced, straight from the oven, and it's absolutely delicious. This spot is popular with both locals and tourists, so you might need to wait a bit for a table, although the turnover is pretty fast. It's not the place for a long leisurely dinner, but perfect for enjoying authentic Roman pizza at a good price. The next morning the weather was again not really on our side, but we stuck on a waterproof and carried on as planned. As you might know, Vatican City, located within Rome, is an independent state and the heart of the Roman Catholic Church. Not only is it the smallest country in the world, but it's also home to the largest church in the world, St. Peter's Basilica. St. Peter's Basilica is incredibly popular, so you could easily end up waiting in line for an hour or two just to get in, even outside of peak season. One way to avoid this is by arriving as close to opening time as possible. But do know that on Wednesdays there's an audience with the Pope, so the Basilica is closed in the morning. When we arrived at 7:15 there was barely any queue to get through security. I'm sure the rain will have influenced this a bit, but I have generally seen that arriving when it opens at 7 is a good tactic. From there we headed straight to the Dome. The views from the top give you a fantastic perspective over Vatican City and across Rome. In our opinion, it was absolutely worth the slog up the 551 steps. If you do plan to climb the dome, I'd suggest doing this early as well like we did, or you could potentially get stuck in another queue. While entrance to the Basilica is free, there is a fee to climb the bell tower. It's €8 if you take the stairs and €10 if you want to use the lift. Be aware that the lift only takes you past the first 231 steps. At this point you can walk around on the roof, but to reach the very top you can't avoid stairs completely, as there's still another 320 steps to go from here. After climbing the dome, take some time to explore the church. The interior is completely enormous, featuring soaring vaulted ceilings, intricate mosaics, and incredible sculptures. It's sure to take your breath away. Even though parts of the Basilica were under construction during our visit, it was still absolutely amazing inside. If you do plan to climb the dome as well, I'd leave yourself about 2 hours total to visit the Basilica. After a mooch around the area and a leisurely lunch, it was time for our Vatican Museum reservations. The Vatican Museums are home to one of the largest and most impressive arts collections in the world, showcasing centuries of masterpieces. You can browse everything from ancient Roman sculptures and Egyptian mummies to Renaissance paintings and modern art. This is also where you'll find the Sistine Chapel, covered in masterful frescoes by Michelangelo. So if the Sistine Chapel is on your bucket list, you'll need a Vatican Museum ticket. Walking through the grand halls and exploring room after room of impressive art is an amazing experience, albeit a little overwhelming. Partly because there's so much to look at, you could easily spend half a day in there at least, but partly because some of the areas of the museums are just so busy. Some sections are totally fine, some are busy but manageable, but others can be downright unpleasant. If you're planning a visit to the Vatican Museums, make sure you book in advance. Although you should know that even though reserving a time slot lets you skip the long ticket queue, you will still need to join another queue to enter. Booking ahead will save you a lot of time though, so it is worth doing. We kept that evening pretty low-key, relaxing at a bar and then cooking back at our accommodation, so let's skip ahead to day 4. Our final day began with a peaceful stroll down Via Margutta, often hailed as one of Rome's most beautiful streets. Made famous in the 1950s by the film Roman Holiday, and known as the Artist Street, it's lined with galleries, charming street lamps, and vine-covered buildings. Just a 5 minutes walk from Via Margutta are the Spanish Steps. This beautiful staircase with 135 steps rises from Piazza di Spagna. Built in the 1700s, it was designed to connect the French church at the top with the Spanish square at the bottom. From the top of the Spanish steps, we walked about 10 minutes to Villa Borghese, passing a couple of fantastic viewpoints along the way. Villa Borghese is a beautiful public park that's ideal if you're looking for a break from the crowds. It's a huge space filled with sculptures, monuments, fountains and ponds. The park is so large that you can even hire carts or surrey bikes to get around properly. Pack a picnic and take your time unwinding and exploring, away from the bustle of the city. The park is also home to the famous Borghese Gallery. We didn't get a ticket for the gallery because we thought we might be feeling a bit museumed out after the Vatican, and to be honest, we were. However, if you do want to visit, this is one of those sites that you need to book in advance, as it does often sell out. We ended up actually spending longer in the park than we planned because we found ourselves sucked into watching the World Skate Games. While the games themselves won't be directly relevant to your trip, it's just a good example of why even the best laid plans are better when kept flexible, because you just never know what you'll come across. From Villa Borghese, we walked to the Coppedè neighbourhood, a small area known for its eclectic mix of architectural styles. Designed in the early 20th century, the ornate facades combine Art Nouveau, Baroque, Gothic and medieval influences. Each whimsical building has a distinct character, and yet they all share a surreal, fairy tale-like quality. To set expectations, the area is quite small and out of the way, so it might not be worth the detour if you already have a packed schedule. However, if you have the time or you just really want to go, it is an unusual stop to consider adding to your itinerary. I've somehow made it to day 4 without discussing gelato. I know, what a monster. We stopped by Giolitti as we'd seen it recommended quite a bit, and it's one of the oldest places to buy gelato in Rome. You pay at the till first, then order your flavours at the gelato counter, and they do have so many flavours to choose from. We really enjoyed the gelato here, but it does get busy, so be prepared for a queue. Whenever that sugar craving hits and you decide you're going to get some gelato, when picking somewhere, just make sure you avoid anywhere where the gelato is piled up super high or its unnatural colours, because this won't be the good stuff. For our final dinner, we made a reservation at a small place called Trattoria della Stampa. We had grilled porcini mushrooms followed by pasta. For dessert, we had the chef's homemade tiramisu. Even as someone who isn't normally a fan, I found it delicious. Light and creamy with just a hint of coffee, it was one of the food highlights of our trip. If you do plan to visit this particular trattoria, I'd recommend making a reservation, as they were turning away quite a few walk-ins while we were there. This was the only time we made a restaurant reservation though, for everywhere else we just showed up. Hopefully you found the tips I've shared so far useful, because here are a few more. Accept that you can't do everything. Whether you're in Rome for 4 days, 5 days, a week or even a month, there's so much to see. Focus on prioritising your own personal must-dos and avoid cramming too much into your itinerary, or it could just end up feeling far too rushed. Take a water bottle with you. The water in Rome is safe to drink, and there are free water fountains around the city where you can top up your water bottle for free. Keep €1 coins on you for public toilets, and when you're at a restaurant, cafe or attraction where there is a free toilet, take advantage of it. You could also use it as an excuse to stop in somewhere for a coffee or a spritz. Stay as central as your budget allows. A lot of the attractions are perhaps surprisingly close together, so staying central makes it easier to walk most or all of the time. Plus, being able to pop back to your room partway through the day if you need is a really nice bonus. You'll want to be aware of any bag restrictions before visiting major attractions like the Vatican, so do check the websites before you go. Also, check if you need to take photo ID. We needed it for the Colosseum, the Roman Forum and the Vatican museums. As mentioned earlier, booking Colosseum tickets can be confusing at first. There are several main ticket types available online. The 24-hour standard ticket gives you 24 hours, unsurprisingly, to explore the Roman Forum, Palatine Hill and levels 1 and 2 of the Colosseum. The 3 full experience tickets are highly sought after, and you'll need to book these as soon as they're released. For the Colosseum, depending on which full experience ticket you choose, you can either visit the attic, the underground in the arena floor, or just the arena floor. There is no ticket that covers all 3. These full experience tickets also give you 48 hours to explore the Colosseum, Roman Forum, Palatine Hill, as well as the additional super sites mentioned. The standard ticket, the attic ticket and the underground ticket can be booked 30 days in advance from 8:30 AM Rome time. When these tickets are released at the 30-day mark, availability is staggered throughout the day, so if you can't get through at 8:30 AM Rome time, just keep trying. We checked back multiple times from the point of tickets being released and managed to grab 2 attic tickets at around noon. We did think the attic full experience ticket was worth the extra effort and cost. But if you miss out, you do still get a good view from levels 1 and 2, so I'd still encourage you to get the standard ticket if that's your only option. For the Colosseum, you do need to stick to your designated time slot. That goes for all different ticket types, although it's up to you if you want to visit the Roman Forum before or after the Colosseum. While it is possible to buy standard tickets on the day, ticket office queues can be long and you may need to wait a while for an available time slot, so it's probably not an efficient use of your precious holiday time. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you're also planning to visit Venice on your trip to Italy, then I'll link our Venice video here, plus a playlist of our other Europe videos. Thanks for watching.